The Ashen Shore Ash lay upon the shore so thick that the sea itself seemed like a dream abandoned by the gods. It crunched underfoot like brittle glass, sending up faint gray wisps that carried a dry, bitter taste into the back of the throat. The wind pushed these pale clouds along the tideline, and with each gust came a whisper, not sound exactly, but the ghost of it, as though the very air was struggling to remember how to speak. Prometheus stood knee-deep in the dead dust. His bare feet sank into its cold looseness, and each step seemed to press a new weight upon his chest. There was no scent of rot here, no trace of life, only a sterile stillness, as though time itself had stalled. He sensed that the shore remembered everything, every fire, every loss, every breath that had burned in someone's chest before being swallowed by silence. Above the sea hung a dense fog, and through it loomed the skeletal remains of broken piers. They jutted from the water like the ribs of some drowned beast. Between them, something strange stirred, a glow, not fire, not the light of a star, but something other. It breathed, slowly, evenly, as though a heart deep within the fog was lit from within, and each beat sent a pulse through the world. Prometheus watched, and his own heart tightened. There was something in that light, voiceless, yet not lifeless. He felt certain that there was a voice within it, sleeping, and if awakened, it would speak something that could never be forgotten. He moved forward. The ash clung to his feet, wet and heavy, leaving deep imprints that filled instantly with gray water. For a moment, he thought he saw tiny shadows writhing within those prints, but when he blinked, they were gone. The closer he came to the glow, the more he sensed a rhythm, faint, almost imperceptible. It was not sound, but a heartbeat. It moved against the grain of his own pulse, as if teaching his body a foreign tempo. For a moment, he felt his heart yield to it, and that frightened him more than the shore itself. At the edge of the last pier, he stopped. Before him, half buried in ash and salt, lay a bronze bowl. Inside it burned a flame colorless, like the shadow of light, and yet impossible to look away from. Within the fire, something shifted, shapes flickering like faces, places, fragments of dreams, and then, without touching him, a voice came. You have come too soon, or far too late. Prometheus inhaled sharply. The flame swayed, as though it had caught his breath, and in that moment, he understood. He was not here to seek the light. The light had been seeking him. The voice did not echo. It didn't need to. The words clung to him, weightless yet immovable, as if they had bypassed his ears entirely and settled straight into his bones. Prometheus stepped closer to the bowl. The flame inside shifted not in the way fire should, but like the breathing of a living thing. It leaned toward him, then recoiled, then leaned again, as if tasting his presence. The air between them was cold, yet his palms tingled as though they hovered over an open furnace. Cautiously, he knelt. The bronze was ancient, its rim pitted and green with verdigris. Symbols wound along its surface, their edges softened by time, their meanings swallowed by centuries. Yet as he looked, they stirred, faint lines glowing like embers, arranging themselves into patterns he almost recognized. The voice came again, quieter now, almost coaxing. You were not meant to carry it, and yet, here you are. He should have turned away. Every part of him whispered to leave the bowl where it lay, to let the sea reclaim it, to pretend the shore had been empty. But something deeper, something older rose against that instinct. He reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the rim, the flame surged. It didn't burn, it poured into him. A white gold rush, weightless and crushing all at once, cascaded down his arms and into his chest. For a heartbeat, he couldn't breathe, not because the air was gone, but because he was no longer sure which breath was his. Images burst behind his eyes. A city of stone towers crumbling into a river of molten glass. A figure walking through a desert where every grain of sand was a dead star. A pair of hands not as holding the same bronze bowl. Centuries ago, in the shadow of something vast and winged. When the visions faded, he realized his hands were no longer empty. The flame now danced in his palms, weightless, silent, and impossibly bright. It should have seared him. Instead, it pulsed with the same alien rhythm he'd felt on the pier, matching the new beat of his heart. From somewhere beyond the fog, the voice spoke a final time. Not warning, not command, but something stranger. What you carry is not yours, but it will be your undoing. The wind rose, scattering ash into the air, and for the first time, Prometheus noticed footprints on the shore, not his own. They led away from the water, into the shrouded land beyond. Still holding the silent flame, he followed. The hum in his chest would not stop. It pulsed through his bones, winding itself into every heartbeat until it felt like the rhythm had always been there, hidden beneath his skin. The masked figure did not move closer, but its presence pressed on him like the weight of a rising tide. The flame in his hand stirred again, stretching toward the smaller bronze bowl at the center of the stone circle. The air between them quivered, faint motes of light drifting like ash caught in an unseen current. Prometheus stepped back. The hum grew sharper, almost a note of warning. He glanced over his shoulder and froze. Beyond the circle, the fog over the sea had shifted. Something vast moved beneath it, a darkness sliding just below the surface of the water. It kept pace with the shoreline, silent except for the faint swells it left in its wake. No fin, no limb broke the surface, only the shape and the sense that it was watching. The masked figure turned its head slightly toward the water. It has found you. What is it? Prometheus asked, his voice low. An echo given form, the figure replied. It follows the scent of the flame. When it reaches the shore, it will not ask your name. The shape in the water drifted closer to land. Though the fog still masked it, Prometheus could feel its attention, cold, dragging pull against his thoughts. He took another step back, and the flame in his hands flared, colorless light spilling across the stones and reaching toward the sea, as if challenging the thing beneath it. The figure lifted its staff. The shard at its tip drank in the light, leaving a sudden hollow of darkness that made the fire seem brighter by contrast. If you wish to keep what you have taken, it said, you must leave this place before the tide turns. Prometheus hesitated. The smaller bowl in the circle tugged at him almost as strongly as the path away from it. And beyond both, the shore waited ash, fog, and now the shadow that glided ever closer. The hum became a thrum. The masked figure's eyes, those deep, endless eyes, locked with his. Choose, it said. The shadow will not. Somewhere out on the water, the darkness broke the surface. He saw nothing but a ripple, yet in that moment, he knew, if he stayed, he would see its face. And whatever were that face, he would not survive it. The fog swallowed the shore like a living thing, thickening with every step Prometheus took away from the sea. The shadow behind him lingered at the water's edge, its silent hunger a dark pulse against the steady beat of the flame he still held. He didn't look back. Ahead, the ash gave way to cracked earth and twisted roots, remnants of a forest long dead, but somehow still standing. The trees were blackened and silent, their branches clawing skyward like desperate hands. Through this hollow graveyard, a faint light flickered. It was steady and warm, an impossible contrast to the cold, gray world around him. Drawn by it, Prometheus found himself before a house, but not a house as he knew one. No windows, no doors, only walls of tangled wood and stone, seamlessly woven together like a living thing. The light shone from within, spilling out as a gentle pulse through the cracks between branches. The flame in his hands throbbed in reply, a quiet call matching the rhythm of the house's glow. He reached out, and the wall rippled under his fingers, soft as skin, yet firm. The house breathed beneath his touch, and the air inside it smelled of old stories and forgotten dreams. A voice, barely more than a breath, whispered from the shadows, "Not all doors are meant to be opened, but some must be found." Prometheus searched the wall, tracing the patterns of bark and stone with trembling hands. Then, almost by chance, his palm pressed against a hollow knot, a shape that shivered and parted like water. He slipped inside. The world changed at once. The cold fog was gone, replaced by a warm glow that wrapped around him like a cloak. The walls pulsed with light, their woven fibers alive with whispers and echoes. Inside, the air thrummed with the same silent flame. He carried countless flickers, each a memory, a hope, a fear. It was a place where lost things gathered, names forgotten, promises broken, and dreams left unspoken. And in the heart of the house, Prometheus heard it, a whisper threading through the flame. Welcome, bearer of the silent fire. Your path is no longer your own. The walls pulsed again, as if answering an honest question, and Prometheus realized the house had no doors, but it had a voice that would guide him deeper into the shadows, where the truth waited to be found or destroyed. Inside the house, silence was not empty. It was thick, almost tangible, like honey spun from shadow. It coated his tongue and filled his lungs with a weight he had never known. The flame in his hands pulsed faintly, as if struggling against the stillness, desperate to speak. Around him, the walls hummed with memories, muted voices trapped beneath the woven wood and stone, whispering secrets he could almost understand. He walked slowly, each step muffled by the living floor beneath his feet. The house seemed to breathe, shifting subtly, folding space and time into itself. Rooms appeared and vanished, corridors twisted back upon themselves like serpents devouring their tails. In a corner, a shard of light caught his eye. It was a small mirror, cracked and clouded, but in its depths, Prometheus glimpsed not his own reflection, but flickers of a distant past, flames licking the night sky. Laughter turned to ash, a hand reaching for something just beyond grasp. He touched the glass, and the silence thickened. It tasted like loss, sharp, metallic, bitter. The whisper came again, closer now, threading through the air like smoke. To carry the flame is to carry the silence it burns away. What will you choose to keep? His fingers trembled, the fire in his palms responding with a flicker of warmth. He understood then. The silent flame was not just power, it was sacrifice. And some sacrifices whispered back. The house shifted once more, revealing a narrow passageway that had not been there before. The light grew dimmer, colder, but the flame pulsed stronger, as if urging him forward. Prometheus stepped into the darkness, the taste of silence heavy on his tongue, and the weight of what was to come pressing down like a stone on his chest. The narrow passage twisted like a serpent's spine, its walls closing in until Prometheus felt the flame in his hands pulse louder, a heartbeat echoing in the quiet dark. Faint shapes flickered in the shadows. Faces, names, memories. Fragments caught between silence and fire. They reached out, whispers tangled in the air, but whenever he tried to listen, the words slipped away like smoke through fingers. Each step forward felt heavier, weighted with unspoken stories. The flame flickered, casting shadows that danced like ghosts along the walls, and Prometheus realized he was not alone. The voices were calling, not to him, but through him. A single name echoed, clear and sharp. Arender. He stopped, breath caught in his throat. Somewhere deep inside, a memory stirred, a distant ember, something lost long ago. The flame flared in answer, and the passage widened into a chamber carved from ancient stone. The walls were inscribed with countless names, etched in bronze that shimmered faintly in the firelight. Prometheus ran his fingers over the carvings, each name humming softly beneath his touch. They were names forgotten by the world, but remembered here, in the heart of the silent flame. A whisper came again. They are the echoes of those who carried fire before you. Their voices are yours to carry, or to silence forever. The flame in his hands pulsed once more, and Prometheus understood the weight of his burden. To bear the flame was to become the keeper of forgotten names, a guardian of silence and fire intertwined. The chamber breathed around him, shadows curling and retreating like the slow rise and fall of a restless heart. The names etched into the walls pulsed faintly, each one a flicker of life trapped between memory and oblivion. Prometheus traced the name Arender again, feeling a sudden chill that seeped into his bones. The flame in his hands dimmed, then brightened, as though reacting to the cold grip of the past. A voice, neither harsh nor kind, whispered from the darkness. Promises made in silence carry a weight that no flame can burn away. He turned toward the sound, but found only the shifting shadows. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with unspoken oaths and forgotten debts. The flame pulsed with growing urgency, urging him forward through a narrow archway that appeared where none had been moments before. Beyond lay a corridor lined with mirrors, their surfaces clouded and cracked, reflecting not faces, but hollow emptiness. As he moved past them, his own reflection flickered, then vanished, leaving only darkness. The whispers grew louder, threading through the mirrors like threads of smoke. What have you promised, bearer of the silent flame? And what will you sacrifice when the silence breaks? A sudden gust swept through the corridor, scattering ash like falling stars. The flame in his hands flared bright enough to burn away the shadows, but not the silence that followed. The corridor stretched endlessly, mirrors lining both sides like silent sentinels, their cracked surfaces whispering secrets Prometheus could almost grasp, but never hold. The flame in his hands flickered wildly, casting twisted reflections that danced like phantoms. Each step forward felt heavier, as if the shadows themselves sought to pull him under, to drown him in the very silence he carried. At the edge of the passage, the mirrors fractured into a dark void. Beyond it, a faint glow beckoned, not warmth, but a cold, unyielding light that seemed to swallow sound and memory alike. Prometheus stepped closer, heart pounding with the strange rhythm that had become his constant companion. The flame pulsed, matching the void's cold pulse, and he felt himself teetering on the brink between light and dark, silence and fire. A voice came then, soft and distant, like a forgotten song carried on the wind. To stand at the edge is to choose to leap, or to fall. He hesitated, the weight of the silent flame pressing down with unbearable gravity. Around him, the shadows shifted, whispering names, promises, and betrayals woven into the fabric of his journey. With a steady breath, Prometheus stepped into the glow. In the endless maze where time fractures and shadows breathe, walks Prometheus, bearer of the silent flame. Each mirror he passes reflects a fragment of forgotten truths and shattered hopes, whispers of a world that once was, and echoes of the future still unwritten. The flame he carries is no ordinary light. It is the essence of forbidden knowledge, a spark of defiance against the consuming silence imposed by those who would chain humanity in darkness. With every step, the labyrinth twists and folds, a living prison of memories and lies designed to break the spirit. Yet Prometheus moves forward, the flame pulsing with a steady rhythm, a heartbeat of rebellion. At the corridor's edge lies a void cold and infinite, swallowing sound and light alike. It is the boundary between despair and awakening, between surrender and revolution. A voice rises from the depths, ancient and haunting. To carry the flame is to choose to ignite the world, or to be consumed by shadow. Prometheus hesitates, feeling the weight of his burden pressing down like stone. Around him, the broken mirrors shimmer, revealing faces and names, allies lost, enemies betrayed, and the cost of his eternal vigil. But the flame cannot be extinguished. With resolve hard as steel, Prometheus steps into the void, the silent flame blazing forth, a beacon in the endless night. The path ahead is unknown, but the fire within him burns bright, a promise that even in the deepest shadows, light will never fade. The glow from the silent flame stretched far beyond the void, illuminating paths that had long been hidden in shadow. Prometheus stepped forward, leaving behind the corridor of mirrors, entering a world reborn from the ashes of forgotten knowledge. Before him lay vast cities of light and steel, where minds and machines intertwined, and the air hummed with possibilities and hidden dangers. He knew the flame he carried would be both a gift and a challenge. In this new era, control was not wielded by force alone, but through the delicate dance of information and trust. Prometheus's journey was no longer just about carrying light, it was about awakening others, sparking hope in hearts that had grown cold with fear and silence. Along winding alleys bathed in neon, within quiet chambers humming with unseen power, and across networks of glowing data streams, new allies and foes awaited. Each step would test his resolve, each choice could kindle a revolution, or extinguish the fragile spark forever. But the flame burned steady. It was a silent promise that even in the age of shadows, the light of freedom could never be snuffed out. And so, Prometheus walked on, ready to face the unknown, the eternal bearer of the flame that would change everything. Beneath the neon glow, The hidden archive awaited, a fortress of forgotten wisdom buried deep within the city's underbelly. Prometheus and Mira moved cautiously, shadows their only cover, as they bypassed intricate security systems designed to silence curiosity. Each step echoed the pulse of the silent flame, steady and unwavering, as if guiding them through the maze of steel and secrets. Inside the archive, walls lined with ancient data crystals shimmered faintly, holding knowledge erased from history and memories. But they were not alone. Guardians of silence, agents devoted to maintaining the status quo, emerged from the darkness, their eyes cold, voices sharp with warning. A confrontation was inevitable. Prometheus stood tall, flame-raised, its glow casting long shadows that danced like ancient spirits. "We carry the light of truth," he declared, voice calm but resolute, "and no shadow can consume what burns from within." Mira, beside him, unleashed her technomantic powers, weaving light and code, blurring reality and data to shield their advance. The battle was not just of strength, but of wills, of old fear confronting new hope. And as the silent flame grew, so did the spark of revolution, igniting hearts beyond the walls of the archive. This was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight to reclaim the future. The last of the guardians faded into the shadows, retreating into the labyrinth from which they had emerged. In the quiet aftermath, the archive pulsed with dormant energy, as though awakening after centuries of slumber. Prometheus approached the central core, a crystalline sphere suspended in midair, threads of light spiraling within like galaxies caught in eternal motion. Mira's voice was soft, reverent. This is the first flame of knowledge, the source from which all truths once flowed." As his hand neared the sphere, the silent flame in his grasp began to resonate, each flicker in perfect harmony with the core's glow. The air shimmered. Images unfolded, visions of a time before the silence, when light and thought traveled freely, when humanity was unbound by fear. But with the visions came a warning, a memory of betrayal, of light stolen and caged, of an endless struggle between those who sought to share and those who sought to hoard. Prometheus felt the weight of this history settle on his shoulders. The flame was no longer just a gift, it was a legacy, and a responsibility greater than he had imagined. He turned to Mira. "We can't guard this. We must give it away piece by piece, to those who will carry it further than we ever could." Her nod was silent but sure. Somewhere far above, the city stirred, unaware that deep below, a seed had been planted, and soon, it would grow into a light that no shadow could touch. The streets above were restless. The hum of the city had shifted, subtle at first, like the change in air before a storm. Prometheus and Mira emerged from the underground tunnels into the cool dawn light. The horizon blushed with the first touch of the sun, yet the glow in his hands was brighter still. As they walked, the silent flame whispered to the hearts of those they passed. A merchant paused mid-step, eyes drawn to the glow. A child laughed without knowing why. Even the weary workers felt a faint spark stir in the depths of their tired souls. But not all welcomed the change. In the towers of glass and light, those who ruled through silence felt the disturbance. Messages crackled through private channels. "The bearer of the flame has surfaced." Prometheus knew time was short. If the flame was to spread, it had to be entrusted to others before the forces of silence closed in. They began their quiet work, leaving fragments of light, with the artists who painted hope into gray walls, with the singers whose voices carried truth through crowded squares, with the teachers who dared to ask forbidden questions. Every fragment carried the essence of the whole. Each would grow, feeding on courage and connection. By nightfall, whispers had already begun to circulate, not of fear, but of change. A single flame had become a constellation, and far above, unseen by most, the first cracks appeared in the great wall of silence. The glow of the silent flame spread like wildfire through the city's veins, igniting hearts and minds. But light always draws shadows. In the towering citadel of silence, cloaked figures gathered, guardians of the old order, sworn to keep truth buried and voices quiet. Their leader, known only as the Veil, watched the flickering reports with cold calculation. "The flame grows," she whispered, "and with it, the threat to our control." Orders were given in hushed tones. Find the bearer. Quell the uprising before it becomes a blaze. Meanwhile, Prometheus sensed the shifting winds. His flame flickered, warning of the approaching storm. He and Mira moved swiftly through hidden alleys and underground networks, rallying those willing to stand, those who dared to defy the silence. Their first open confrontation came beneath the neon haze of the old quarter. Shadows moved like predators, but the silent flame burned steady, cutting through the darkness. Words were weapons, courage, a shield. Prometheus spoke not with anger, but with conviction, a promise that the light was not a weapon of war, but a gift of freedom. Still, the fight had begun. The Veil's agents closed in, but the flame's glow was a beacon drawing not just resistance, but hope. The dawn of a new era was breaking. Here's the next chapter expanding the journey and introducing new lands and allies for Prometheus's quest. They crossed the valley of glass plains, where the earth shimmered underfoot as if it remembered the fire of ancient skies. The wind carried voices, faint echoes of those who had once resisted the silence, now reduced to legend in these lands. In a secluded village of stone and light, they met Arian, a cartographer who mapped, not geography, but human connections, lines of trust and courage drawn between strangers. He had heard whispers of the flame, believing it to be myth. But when Prometheus revealed it, Arian's eyes reflected the glow like a long-forgotten sunrise. There are cities eastward, he said, unrolling a map etched into crystal. Places where silence is so deep, even dreams have no color. If your light can reach them, they will awaken. The journey east was perilous. They passed through forests where the trees themselves seemed to guard secrets, and across rivers that mirrored the stars so perfectly. It felt as though they walked the night sky. At each stop, they left sparks in the hands of poets, builders, healers until the road behind them shone faintly like a trail of constellations. But the farther they traveled, the more they felt the presence of something vast, watching, waiting. The Veil's reach was not bound to the city. Still, the flame burned steady, and somewhere beyond the horizon, a shadow moved not to snuff it out, but to claim it. The air thickened, charged with the tension of two opposing forces, the eternal flame of hope and the consuming void of despair. Prometheus raised the silent flame, its light pulsing like a heartbeat against the encroaching darkness. The void wraith surged forward, tendrils of shadow twisting and reaching, seeking to smother the flame in cold oblivion. But Prometheus did not fight alone. Around him, the sparks left along their journey ignited whispers of light from distant lands, converging into a radiant web of strength. Mira's technomantic shield flared, creating ripples in the fabric of reality, bending shadow away like dawn disperses night. Light is not just fire, Prometheus shouted, voice echoing with ancient power. It is connection. It is belief. It is the will to endure. The void wraith recoiled, the silent flame's glow piercing its core. Yet the darkness was relentless, a tide that refused to be fully repelled. In that crucible, Prometheus understood, this battle was not about vanquishing the void, but about living with it, forging light from the shadows themselves. With a steady breath, he let the flame burn steady, not to consume, but to illuminate the path forward. The dawn broke fully, scattering shadows and lighting a way into the uncertain future. The first light of dawn spread gently over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and rose. Prometheus stood upon a high cliff overlooking the lands he had traveled, a silent flame glowing steadily in his hands. Behind him, the fires kindled in countless villages and cities flickered to life. No longer fragile sparks, but blazing beacons, proof that the light had taken root in the hearts of many. The world was not perfect. Shadows still lingered in quiet corners, doubt still whispered in the minds of the weary, but something fundamental had shifted. The flame was no longer just a solitary spark held by one. It had become a living fire shared, nurtured, and protected by a community bound by hope and resilience. Mira stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the dawn's glow. "We've come far," she said softly. Prometheus nodded. "The flame is not just light against darkness," he answered. "It is the choice to keep burning, even when shadows fall." It is the courage to face uncertainty, and the trust that others will do the same. In the distance, the sound of voices rose songs, laughter, stories told by those who had been touched by the silent flame. Prometheus lifted his gaze to the rising sun. This was more than an ending. It was the beginning of a new age. An age where light and shadow danced together, where silence no longer meant absence, but a space for reflection and growth. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the flame spread through him. Steady, unwavering. This is our legacy, he whispered. Not just the fire we carry, but the world we choose to build with it. And as the sun broke fully over the land, Prometheus stepped forward into the dawn of a new era, where every heart could kindle their own light, and every soul could shine. The world had learned to live with the flame. Cities glowed softly at night, fields flourished under its warmth, and hearts no longer feared the shadow's embrace. Yet Prometheus sensed a restlessness beneath the calm, a whisper carried on the wind, a flicker at the edge of vision. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of amber and violet, Prometheus stood alone on a quiet hill. The flame in his hand pulsed faintly, syncing with a rhythm he had never known before. Far beyond the lands he had illuminated, beyond the last village where his light still burned bright, a new signal emerged. It was neither darkness nor fire, something ancient, strange, and full of promise. The air around him shimmered, and from the depths of that shimmer stepped a figure draped in a cloak woven from starlight and shadow. You carry the flame, the figure said, voice like a breeze threading through leaves. But do you hear the flicker beyond it, the spark that has always been waiting? Prometheus met the gaze of the stranger, feeling the weight of worlds unseen pressing upon his soul. Prometheus lowered his gaze, watching the flame flicker in his palm. The stranger's presence was both unsettling and strangely familiar, as if they were a reflection of something buried deep within his own past. You have walked the path of light and shadow, the figure said softly, stepping closer, but the flicker beyond the flame, it is the spark of possibility, the unknown waiting to be shaped. Prometheus felt a surge of questions rise in him. What is this spark? What lies beyond the flame I carry? The stranger smiled, a glint of stars in their eyes. That is the journey you must now undertake. To seek not just the light, but the spaces between the silence where new worlds are born. The wind shifted, carrying whispers of ancient songs and forgotten dreams. The flame pulsed stronger, resonating with the stranger's words. Will you follow it? The figure asked. Prometheus nodded, the weight of certainty settling over. He will. With a graceful turn, the stranger melted into the twilight mist, leaving behind only the echo of their presence, and a path illuminated by the flame's steady glow. As night fully embraced the land, Prometheus took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to explore the flicker beyond. The path of whispered light. The morning light filtered through the canopy of ancient trees as Prometheus walked along a narrow, winding path. The flame in his hand burned steadily, a beacon in the cool dawn air. Yet, unlike before, the light felt different, softer, more curious, as if it were searching for something unseen. Behind him, the village he had once nurtured lay quiet, safe under the protective glow of the eternal flame. Ahead, the unknown stretched wide, promising new challenges and revelations. As he moved deeper into the forest, the air grew thick with the scent of earth and rain. Strange sounds echoed around, not threats, but murmurs of something awakening. Suddenly, a flicker danced at the edge of his vision, a glimmer of shadow intertwined with light. Prometheus paused, tightening his grip on the flame. From the underbrush emerged a creature unlike any he had seen before, slender and shimmering, its form shifting between solid and mist, its eyes, bright and inquisitive, fixed on him. You carry the fire of ages, it said in a voice like wind through leaves. But are you ready to see what lies beyond its glow? Prometheus met the creature's gaze steadily. I seek not just light, but understanding. The creature smiled, a ripple of silver in its form. Then follow me. The path of whispered light awaits. Without hesitation, Prometheus stepped forward, leaving behind the certainty of what he knew, and stepping into the mystery of what was to come. The creature moved gracefully through the trees, leaving behind a faint trail of shimmering light. Prometheus followed, his step steady, despite the uncertainty that curled in his chest. Around them, the forest seemed to breathe, leaves rustling in whispered conversation, shadows shifting but never threatening. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing, bathed in an ethereal glow. At its center stood an ancient stone altar, worn smooth by time, yet humming with quiet power. The creature paused and turned to Prometheus. This is the threshold of echoes. Beyond it lies the realm where the flicker beyond the flame resides. A place between worlds, where possibilities converge. Prometheus stepped closer, feeling the air thicken with energy. He could sense faint voices, echoes of forgotten dreams, choices unmade, futures unwritten. Why bring me here? He asked, voice low. Because to understand the true nature of your flame, you must face the echoes within yourself, the creature replied. Only by embracing what is hidden can you ignite the spark that will guide the next dawn. The flame in Prometheus's hand flickered, casting long shadows that danced around the clearing. He took a deep breath and reached out, touching the surface of the altar. A ripple spread through the air, and suddenly, visions flooded his mind. Memories, fears, hopes, and truths tangled in a tapestry of light and shadow. As the vision settled, Prometheus knew his journey was no longer just about carrying a flame. It was about becoming the flame itself, a beacon not only of light, but of understanding and transformation. He looked up at the creature. I am ready. The creature smiled, fading slowly into the glow, then stepped forward. Prometheus, the path of whispered light has begun. With resolve burning brighter than ever, Prometheus stepped through the threshold, into the unknown. Through the threshold. The moment Prometheus crossed the threshold, the world shifted. The dense forest and familiar scents dissolved into a place that was neither here or there, a realm suspended between realities. Around him stretched an endless expanse of softly glowing mist, where shapes and colors flickered like distant stars. Sounds were muted, yet every heartbeat, every breath, echoed clearly, as if amplified by the stillness. Prometheus raised the flame higher. Its light cut through the mist, revealing a pathway paved with shards of fractured reflections, glimpses of possible futures and forgotten pasts. As he stepped forward, each fragment shimmered with scenes, a child's laughter lost in time, a promise made and broken, victory celebrated, and a sorrow endured. He felt the weight of all these moments pressing gently on his spirit. Here, the flame was more than fire, it was memory, choice, and hope, woven into a delicate balance. Suddenly, a voice resonated through the mist, calm, yet filled with ancient wisdom. Prometheus, it said, to walk this path is to confront not only the world's light and shadow, but your own. From the haze emerged a figure, cloaked and serene, eyes glowing softly like embers. I am the keeper of echoes. I guard the memories and possibilities that shape what is and what might be. Prometheus met the keeper's gaze. What must I do? Listen, the keeper replied. Hear the echoes, learn their stories, and let them guide your flame. Only then will you carry a light that can truly transform. The mist shifted, revealing multiple paths ahead, some bright, others dark, all uncertain. Prometheus took a steady breath, feeling the silent flame warm in his palm. Then I will listen. With that, he stepped forward onto the first path, ready to embrace the echoes that would shape the new dawn. The first echo, the mist thickened as Prometheus walked, swallowing the path behind him. The shards beneath his feet grew larger, each one reflecting fragments of a different world. On one shard, he saw himself standing atop a mountain of glass, holding a flame so bright it shattered the sky. On another, he wandered through empty cities, his flame reduced to a dying ember. The keeper's voice followed him, though the figure itself had vanished. Every echo is a seed, it whispered. It can grow into hope or despair. The choice is yours. The light ahead dimmed, replaced by a soft silver glow. From the mist emerged a boy no older than 12, cradling a small lantern. His face was pale, eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. Are you Prometheus? The boy asked. I am, Prometheus replied, lowering his flame slightly. Who are you? The boy hesitated and echoed. A memory of a time when your flame reached my village. But here, it never came. My world stayed cold. Prometheus felt the weight of the boy's words settle on him like frost. You're from a path that might have been, he murmured. The boy nodded. The keeper said you could change echoes, that you could give us light. Prometheus looked at his flame. Here, within the threshold, it seemed to pulse with the boy's heartbeat faint, but steady. If I give you this light, Prometheus said slowly, it will change you, but it will also change me. I'm not afraid, the boy whispered. Prometheus knelt, letting the flame drift toward the lantern. The moment it touched, the mist trembled, and the shard beneath them blazed with warmth. The boy smiled, and in an instant, dissolved into a burst of golden sparks that swirled upward, vanishing into the unseen sky. When the light faded, Prometheus stood alone, but the flame in his hand burned brighter, and the path ahead had shifted. The keeper's voice returned, tinged with approval. One echo embraced, many more await. Prometheus stepped forward, deeper into the realm of possibilities.